All right, let's get going. The first step is going to be to remove the deck. We're going to start by removing the hook at the back using our 5mm Allen key and removing the 2 screws that are holding them on. And we can now remove the grip tapes on the side. And we'll remove a total of 12 screws that are holding the deck in place using a 2.5mm Allen key. Now that all 12 screws are off, we can remove the deck. You can do so either using a flathead screwdriver or anything thin, for example even these scissors, and just putting it through just somewhere a slit just to lift it off, and there we go. Once that's off, remove the padding that's here. Some scooters may not have this. And now what we're doing here is really just removing or disconnecting the battery from the scooter. That way when we cut and when we play with the key ignition, we're sure not to cause any shortage. So there should be 2 cables, 2 connectors like this, which I'll just disconnect from the controller. It's 1 and 2. Next step, we're going to cut those cable ties here. You may not always have the exact same number of cable ties, just as long as the cables are free. And this is on the left side of the scooter where the key ignition is. After that, we're going to remove the handle using a 4mm Allen key. You only need to loosen the screw. There's no need to remove it completely. Then to remove the brake handle, it's going to be easier if you fold the handlebars. So I'm just going to unscrew here. I'll fold the handlebars, there we go, and use a 5mm Allen key with the screw down there. Same thing, just need to loosen and it should slide right off. There we go. I'll just put the handlebars back straight. And now for the bell, we're going to use a Phillips screwdriver. The same thing, just loosen the screw and remove it. Now for the key ignition, there's a small screw here that's holding it in place. Using a 2.5mm Allen key, you can loosen that. And that should slide right off. You may have to fold the handlebars too. And there we go. Next, we'll remove this plastic covering here. And we'll also remove the wrap that's here. You can either cut that or use scissors to get through. Now that that's off, we can remove the old key ignition. Now you don't want to do it too far up because you want to have it look clean and you don't want it to be seen, so we're going to try to do it as close as possible here where the plastic wrap is going to cover it, but you don't want it too close that you won't have enough space to work around with the cables. So I'm going to cut it around here. There shouldn't be any problem just cutting through the wires. If there's a little spark, don't worry, it won't damage anything and you won't get hurt. There we go. Next, using a wire stripper, we're just going to strip the cable that's over the 3 smaller wires. Now if it doesn't do big enough, make sure that you're not cutting through. So you want to be careful and just press a little bit on each side. Pull that right through, and we'll do the same thing and strip all 3 wires here. That's 1, 2, and 3. Once that's done, just twist the copper that's inside just to make it clean on all 3 wires. Next, let's get our new key ignition, which will pass through the handlebar here. As you can see over here, I've already stripped these out so they're nice and clean. And instead of soldering, here we're going to be using crims. Now before we put those on, I'm going to put a heat shrink. So I'm going to estimate about the length that I need here. Because once again, I don't want it overlapping too much so that it can still look and stay clean. So I'm assuming around this much. Cut the heat shrink the length that I need it, and we'll put on the crims. We'll start wire by wire. If you know how to solder, then that can be another alternative too, but this is a quick and easy way. Remember to pass the heat shrink through here, and you'll have some space, so I'm just going to put it nice and tucked away. So I'm going to start with the green wire here. Now how it works is that you pass it through, but not completely, just until the cable stops before the metal piece. And this is where I use a vice grip. You can use a regular plier too. Just with a vice grip it's going to be stronger and easier to do. So I go here, but I don't want to overlap that small mark that I have there. You don't want to be clamping the whole thing because we've got the other part of the wire that we need to do as well. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. And now you can apply heat here to make it shrink. Now you don't need to use, I'm going to use a heat gun, but you can use a lighter as well to heat this up. We'll just wait for this to cool down just a bit, that way it solidifies, and we'll do the same thing with the other wires. Now you can reconnect the battery just to make sure that the key ignition works. We'll turn the key here, and if it works, you should see it light up. And you know that you've connected the wires properly. Now that we know it works, next thing to do is put the heat shrink around all of those cables. That way it will look nice and clean, and apply heat again. We'll just double check again that the key ignition works. It does, and we're good to go. And we can start re-putting everything on the handlebar. We'll start with the bell. Pass through, we don't need to tighten anything yet. We'll go with the brake handle. Pass that through, and finally the grip handle. Now have your handlebars straight, and retighten the middle part. And we'll start by tightening our grip handle. We'll put the little plastic piece in and make sure that it's aligned with the other one. Next, same thing with the brake handle. This one with the 5mm Allen key. The bell, using the Phillips screwdriver. And finally, the key ignition. Place it where you want it, using the 2.5mm Allen key. Now we're going to clean things up. So I'm just going to put a little bit of insulating tape around here just to get the cables together. This is not 100% necessary, but just, you know, just an extra. Let's get the plastic covering back on too. There we go. And finally, a cable tie to tighten it up. Great, and now our final step is just to re-put the deck on the scooter. Make sure that the cables are nice and tight and there's space for the deck to come back on. And we'll re-put the padding here and get the deck back on. We'll start by re-putting the 12 screws that hold the deck on the scooter. And while you're doing this, remember to go in a star or cross pattern where you start on one side, then go on the other, like so. And then you can just tighten each one up. Once everything is nice and tight, we can put the hook back on, this time using the 5mm Allen key. And finally, just putting the grip tape back on. And that's it, guys. You've changed the key ignition on your Apollo Ghost.